Hello, Richard here from Saldatore Distribution. Today what we're going to do is have a look at the MOSA 150 amp welding machine, and I'm going to talk about some of the specifications and just a little bit of information about the machine for anyone that's thinking about buying a new welding machine. I always tell all my customers, make sure you look at all the specs and all the information about our machine as well as the competitors, Lincoln, Miller, anybody else you're looking at. And I want you to take a look at them to understand what you're getting with each of the machines. Now, on this particular machine, what you're looking at is 150 amps of welding power. That's the maximum welding power. It's 150 amps with a 60% duty cycle. And what that means basically is at 60% of the welding time, you can weld with 150 amps, which is the maximum. So basically 6 out of every 10 minutes, you can weld at 150 amps before the machine would overheat and shut itself down. It has a thermal protection inside built in, so if you do reach the point where it's going to overheat, before it starts burning and melting things, it will shut itself off to cool down before you can weld again. And of course what that means is if you are welding below the maximum, below the 150, 110, 120, 130 or below that, you are raising the percentage of the duty cycle for the amount of time that you can weld with it. So if you're welding down 70, 80 amps, you're not going to be anywhere near this 60. You're being much higher duty cycle, which means you can pretty well run it all of the time in that fashion. Now, one of the things that seems to be a bit of confusion with some of our customers when they look at the machine very quickly is the label here. This is the control for the output. So this controls your output to your electrode when you're welding for your amperage. And what you see is there's a label here that has numbers on it, and a lot of customers look very quickly and they see 100% and they take that as if that is 100 amps, but that's not true. The machine is 150 amps, but what they've done is this range here is in percentage. So if you're all the way to the end, that's 100% of 150 amps, so that's 150 amps. If you go and you put it at, let's say 50%, that is not 50 amps, that's 75 amps, which is half of 150 amps. So 50% of 150 is 75. So that way you understand how to work this. One of the things that you want to do as well is look at, when you're looking at the specifications on the different machines, look at what the range of amperage is. On this particular machine, the minimum is 30 amps, and the maximum, as I said, is 150. So you go from 30 to 150 and everything in between, and that allows you to have more control when you're welding thinner materials, thicker materials, whether you're running the beads up, down, however you're doing it, so you have more control. And when you're looking at buying a welding machine, you want to see what the specs are, not just the power, but the bottom end and the duty cycle, of course. One of the things that you look at when you're talking about on the welding side, what they've done for this particular machine is they've put in these connectors. These are called DINS connectors. It's a European connector, and basically what it is you have a DINS plug. Now there are different sizes of DINS plugs. They're smaller and larger. This particular one is about a medium size. This is 12.9 millimeters, which is slightly over a ½ inch. So it's a ½ inch DINS connector. And basically, it's just a pin lock where it goes into place, turns clockwise to your right, and it locks in place. Same thing on the positive side, locks in place. When we're building cables here at Saldatore, we color code everything just like the machine is color coded. You can see a big positive, red, and red is positive. That's on your electrode side. Once again, red for positive. And then the black, which is negative, is on your ground clamp side. So positive and negative, very easy to understand. If you get some of our cables, they're all color coded, so it's very easy to understand how to use it. The reason that they use the DINS connectors, this machine is meant to be a portable machine. It weighs 75 pounds. So basically you're using the machine when you're welding at heights, out in the field, wherever you need to go. If it's difficult to get to, you want to use this kind of a machine so you can carry it directly to where you're welding, allowing you to use shorter cables, and you're saving time You're getting more power because you're not losing power over the length of the cables. It's quick connect and disconnect, so that when you're moving the machine, you just unplug them very easily. You can carry out without tripping over the cables and dragging them behind you. When you're looking at buying a machine, have a look at the competitors, Lincoln and Miller. So as an example, if you look at a Lincoln, the one that's closest to this particular machine is the Outback 145. Now the Outback 145 is less amperage, has a smaller amperage range, and it weighs 234 pounds versus our 74. They're both considered portable machines, but as far as I'm concerned, 75 pounds is really portable, whereas 234 pounds, being portable for a couple of people, it's a lot harder to move around. And we have more power, higher duty cycle, more amperage, and a larger range than our competitors. Now, this particular machine, unlike the Lincoln and Miller's, this was designed primarily for welding. This machine is a welding machine. It welds very smooth, has a lot of good welding characteristics. As well, it also does generate. The key to it is, you'll see the outlet here, you get 120 volts with 13.6 amps. The idea is this was meant to generate a little bit of power, so when you're on a job site, you can use a drill, grinders, sawzall, that type of equipment to basically assist you in your job. But it was never meant to be a generator in the sense that you take it to your cottage excuse me, to run refrigerators or heaters or air conditioners. That's not what it's meant for. This machine is meant to be a welding machine. It welds very smooth, very well, quick start to the welding, anti-sticking properties. It's really, really a good welding machine. It will weld 70-18 rods. It'll do stainless, it'll do aluminum, it'll weld up to 1/8 diameter rods. It'll also, if you need to touch up, if you need to do some work on a pipeline, a gas or oil pipeline, it'll use those rods as well. It's multifunctional, and if you want to weld thin material, you take it all the way down to the 30 amps, and if you want to go very thick material, you can go right up to 150. One other feature that this machine will allow you to do is if you're in a shop where you happen to have more than one machine, if you want to weld something very thick, if the bucket on a backhoe or something, 1-inch plate, something very thick, and you don't have the time, or you don't want to, really chamfer the two sides of material you're going to weld together to lay your root pass and then fill it. If you had two of these machines, you can, using a special set of cables, which we'll get into on another video, you can actually hook up the two machines in parallel and double the power. So you can, in theory, if you had two machines, get 150 times 2, so you could get 300 amps of welding power out of these two machines. If you wanted to do something really, really thick, it's not a problem. You can do that if you've got a couple of machines. But once again, we'll get into that on another video. One of the things is when you're looking at the outlet on the generating side, it's 120 amps, but if you read the specifications, it says that it's DC. Do not be alarmed. Even though it is DC, they have a patented electronic converter inside the machine that converts it to AC power. And what happens is, so that is giving you 120 volts of AC power, not DC, because all your hand tools run with an AC, which is alternating current, as opposed to DC, which is direct current. Now the machine on the welding side is DC, but on the power generation it's AC. If you happen to plug in something and you blow the fuse, basically here's where your fuse is. It's a glass fuse, an automotive style glass fuse. You can pick them up at Pep Boys, Auto Parts, Napa, pretty well everywhere that has glass fuses. Is pretty straightforward to find. This is just it's spring loaded. You push it in, find the tab. Once it's pushed in, you turn it clockwise and it locks into place. It doesn't screw on, and you're all set to go. So that's basically the machine. So make sure if you're in the market looking for a machine, you compare this to the correct competitors' machines. On this particular one, the Lincoln would be the Outback 145, and I know Miller has a new machine, the Fusion 160, which this is in the same range as well as a competitor. And check in the next few weeks. We're going to be talking about putting these two machines in parallel to get double the power if you want to weld with it, with very thick materials and high amperage. And we'll also be doing a video on the 200 amp machine from MOSA shortly. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.